Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined with the 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director, Ryan Young, as well as SaskAgToday.com Chief Agricultural Editor, Kevin Hirsch. I'm Doug Falconer from GX94 in Yorkton. And of course, the big topic this week was the U.S. tariffs. And of course, Kevin, we saw the tariffs go on Tuesday and then they came back off for the most part on Thursday. Your reaction to the news from down in the States?
It's been a confusing week with on and off, and talk of reciprocal tariffs and talk of more tariffs on things like aluminum and steel. Uh, the potash tariff really affecting Saskatchewan exports. That's apparently in abeyance for the next month, but has been scaled back to 10% rather than the 25%. So I've heard a lot of business to the U.S. is just not happening right now. Everything from bison moving across to organic crops, just some relatively minor commodities in the whole scheme of things, but also trucking companies saying that with all the uncertainty, there's just not a lot of stuff that's moving right now unless it was predetermined.
Ryan, you had a chance to speak to quite a few people this week regarding the tariffs, starting off, first of all, with Saskatchewan Agriculture Minister Daryl Harrison.
That's right. He was down in the States for a national policy conference with all the State Department of Agriculture representatives. And he heard quite a bit about the concern of the tariffs from the American perspective. And it seems that they understand the impacts and the fact that it would hurt both sides of the border, not just Canada, but the Americans as well. But I do remember asking him at one point, how effective do you think those conversations with the Americans are, and whether that could trickle up to the Oval Office? And he kind of shares the same belief as Premier Scott Moe that talking with state counterparts and agricultural farm groups down there, that'll definitely help, because given just some of the relationships that they have within the White House. So we'll see where that goes. It kind of seems like it's working somewhat. I know with the potash tariffs specifically, I heard a little bit about the farming community kind of pushing back on that and Trump conceding to that. So it's going to be a matter of if more tariffs are going to come off or not. But I guess we'll see what happens. But that was pretty much all Ag Minister Harrison said with regards to the tariffs. He was more listening than anything. A lot of other groups I talked to this week, including APAS and the Grain Growers of Canada, and even Ralph Goodale, Canada's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. And they all say that these tariffs are just the dumbest thing that anyone could ever think of. And just a lot of uncertainty as to, what specific products, when are they going to go into effect, how it'll affect, marketing grain or doing business with livestock and a whole host of other things. So, like Kevin said, it's been a whirlwind and a confusing week for sure.
Kevin, a lot of groups, APAS, the Canadian Canola Growers Association, Saskatchewan Cattle Association, Grain Growers of Canada, all coming out against tariffs. Nothing there surprises you, I would imagine.
Well, we've known, and it's been threatened, the tariffs even before President Trump's inauguration. So there's really nothing much more to say. Is people maybe sharpen their arguments a little bit, but and knowing exactly what it means for commodity prices and trade flows and how things will readjust is very, very difficult to know. So all of the groups want to react and want to put their voice out there, but really they don't have a lot to say that's much different than what they've said over the past couple of months. Tariffs are bad. Open trade is best beneficial for everybody. But we have seen with the changing picture and the delays and some of the carve outs on the tariffs that it's not a resolute issue, even in President Trump's mind. Obviously, he can be persuaded that some of this needs to be massaged. And before that, it sounded like it was hard and fast and was not going to be changeable at all. So that is probably a good sign. It's also tough to know how much the market has really already encapsulated this risk into commodity prices, because when the tariffs were applied this week, we didn't see commodity prices go in the tank, or at least not in any great way for any great length of time.
Ryan, you spoke with Adam Picallo about the grain and oilseed prices this week. We did see canola drop rather dramatically. I think it was on Tuesday, but it bounced back for the most part and didn't close down a whole lot.
No, it did go down, but also the wheat prices as well. They also went down as a result of the tariffs, and that's not really surprising. But in my conversation with Adam, I kind of asked, given with all the tariffs and stuff, what would be Ventum Financial's general advice to navigate these waters? And he said it all depends on your risk tolerance when it comes to investing. So there is opportunity amongst the chaos, and if you're one to tolerate a lot of risk, then you won't really have a problem with that. But if you're a conservative investor or deal with Ventum Financial, then you would be worried and concerned about an uncertain future. So it really all depends on the preference of the client, I guess. But for sure, we did see canola and wheat futures go down. I'm not sure on the exact amount. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but there was some effect. And when it comes to the stock market as well, I remember on Tuesday, the Dow and the TSX, they were down quite considerably, between 400 to 600 points. So you can see the impact that the tariffs have, as well as the loonie. It went down from about 70 cents to 68 cents, and since then it's been hovering around 69, just below 70 cents US.
Kevin, do a lot of producers have much left in the bin to be worried about the price of canola or wheat right now anyway?
There's still business ongoing, certainly, and movement has been reasonably good in most commodities, but there's always ongoing marketing, and you worry about the prices for the upcoming crop year as well, and what that might do to price expectations. I have been gratified, and I think we talked last week about the livestock price insurance, and I was worried that the reality of tariffs coming on might make that insurance less attractive. But if you look at the numbers, you can still lock in calves for fall delivery with a floor price that's pretty darn good, and the premium hasn't gone up all that much either, as compared to when we last talked with the program coordinator. So I continue to urge producers, if they want some price protection on their calf run for the fall, is take a look at the livestock price insurance program and see if it meets your needs.
Ryan, you spoke with Emily Schmidt from the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture about cattle prices. What did she have to say about them over the past week?
They were largely supported by feedlot demand and decline in corn prices after several weeks of those prices steadily increasing. For the most part, feeder steers, they were kind of mixed on the week. Some were up, some were down. And then on the heifer side, it was mostly up, so they continued their upward swing. When I asked her a little bit afterward about the cattle futures, because she did mention in the prior week's cattle market update that the feeder cattle futures were supporting the prices for that week at the time. And I asked her if they were a factor again, and she said it was really hard to tell, just with all the other market uncertainty, largely due to the tariffs, excuse me. So those were kind of the main factors. And then another one, too, was the warmer weather and the improvement in the weather. It allowed producers to send more cattle to auction. We saw an increase in the number of head for this past week. So overall, it's been okay. It seems like the prices have been able to fend off all the chaos surrounding the tariffs.
Something else that we wanted to bring up was the fact that the Ag Transport Coalition puts out a report every week about how well CN and CPKC Rail are doing when it comes to grain deliveries. And Kevin, the numbers from this past week show that they're not doing very well at all.
We visited this several weeks ago, looking at where railway performance was at based on the reports from the Ag Transport Coalition, but it's only gotten worse since then, which probably is to be expected considering the very cold weather, but really service has been declining since the end of November. And according to the Ag Transport Coalition, if you combine both major railways together in crop week 29, which would have been a week or 2 weeks ago now, there's always a lag in reporting. The two railways combined only supplied 31% of the rail cars that farmers were ordering that week. The Ag Transport Coalition says this is the worst performance in the 10 years that has been monitoring railway performance. So that says something. That's a terrible performance. And there's other information coming out. If you look at how many grain vessels are waiting on the West Coast, there are now 37 waiting at the Port of Vancouver, with 23 of those ships delayed up to a month due to inadequate grain deliveries. And just in the last 2 weeks, there's been 28 vessels arrive and only 19 depart. So when vessels build up there and they have to sit there for a long time, demurrage charges mount, and it's farmers that end up paying through lower grain prices when those demurrage charges get out of hand.
All right. And then the one last thing that came in on Friday afternoon was the advance payments program. And Federal Agriculture Minister Lawrence MacAulay announced that it would be going from the interest-free portion from $100,000 to $250,000 again. It wasn't going to be that way, and then they changed it here just today. Your reaction to that news, Kevin?
Well, it seems like we're into the habit of every year now. It was several years ago when they, because of higher interest rates, that they raised it from the $100,000 in interest-free money. I think maybe that first year was $350,000. Then the following year came on, it was going to go back to the $100,000. Eventually, they raised it to $250,000. They did it again last year, and they've done it now. I don't know why if it's going to be raised to $250,000, why don't they get that in line before the program is announced? If 250,000 is the right number, well, let's enshrine that and let people know that that's going to be the number every year rather than the 100,000. But in all fairness, it is early in the cash advance season. Producers taking out cash advances on their grain will do it based on their crop insurance coverage. So it is early in the program year, and producers now do have the certainty that is going to be $250,000 that will be interest free. So it is welcome. It's just a bit of a mystery why we have to wait for it every year.
All right. And then one last note, the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities will be holding its annual general meeting next week in Saskatoon, I believe. And I know, Ryan, you've spoken with Bill Huber in the past about that big convention coming up.
Yeah, I mentioned it briefly in my interview with Bill Huber. We were talking about I believe it was the call to reinstate strychnine at the time, and kind of mentioned the annual convention in passing, and that could be one of the main resolutions to be introduced at the SARM annual convention. I've yet to kind of read through the full summary of all the resolutions introduced by various RMs, so that'll be my homework for this weekend, but looking forward to that. And I could imagine it'll be a packed house as well. I know last year when I was here in Regina, it was a pretty good house and lots of good things happening. So looking forward to what comes out of the SARM annual convention next week.
And Kevin, of course, that'll be happening in your backyard. Good for the Saskatoon economy, and always interesting to see what's going on in the rural municipalities.
And they've got a fairly large trade show component as well, that they're actually inviting people that are not necessarily directly associated with SARM to come to the trade show portion. All of the businesses that provide services to SARM and to others will be there. But it's a large contingent. It's usually quite a place for a platform for politicians and for all of the policy notes of the day. So I'm sure that there'll be some interesting stuff come out of the bear pit sessions and out of the presentations from political leaders.
With that, we'll wrap up this edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hirsch and 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next time.